The beacons of Gondor are alight, calling for aid. War is kindled. See, there is the fire on Amandine, and flame on Eilenach. And there they go speeding west, Nardul, Erelas, Min Rimon, Calenhad, and the Halafirian on the borders of Rohan. Michael Van and my friends, Yoiston here, and I hope you all are doing well, wherever you are in Middle-earth. Today we are taking a look at the Beacons of Gondor, famous for their inclusion in some very exquisite scenes in the Return of the King movie. Some sources for today's article may be found in the description and cards. My friends, thank you all so much for joining me. Let's begin our tale. The Beacons of Gondor were ancient, great devices built both northwest and southwest of Minas Tirith, running on either side of the Ered Nimras, the White Mountains. According to Gandalf and what he told Pippin atop Shadowfax, on their way to Minas Tirith, at the beginning of the Return of the King, they were built by a lord of the city of Minas Tirith long before, and fresh horses were always maintained at these points to bear errand riders further into Rohan or Belfalas along the coast. Now, exactly how old the beacons were is not known, as there is an argument to be made that while the Palantiri endured in the realms of Gondor, Arnor, and in Orthanc, there was no need for them truly. Yet with the loss of many Palantiri, and the establishment of the Kingdom of Rohan, it seems that these beacons were built mostly to warn Rohan and southern Gondor if Gondor was in danger and needed aid, and vice versa. The oldest beacons were Amandine, Eilenach, and Min Rimon, yet others were added also. Originally, Halafirian, later named Amon Anwar, the Hill of Awe, which was originally the site of Elendil's grave and the oath of Rohan and Gondor between Eorl and Cirion the Steward, had no fort nor beacon, as it was very much a holy site. Yet it seems that changed after part of the guard of the tomb, and that holy place was generally given also to Rohan, and only after Elendil's casket was removed to Rathdinan in Minas Tirith. Eventually, there would be 7 beacons built north of the White Mountains, as stated at the beginning of this video, with an unknown amount also being built in the south. Based on what I can discern about the timeline here, it seems that it was most likely Cirion the Steward that saw them built, and the need to keep them well preserved passed to every steward until Aragorn, who also likely took this duty quite seriously. It seems, at least according to the Firian beacon and wood around the beacon, there were small houses near to these beacons, yet men would not stay there long, only enough to upkeep each beacon and the road to it, and these were known as the Beacon Wardens, again if we can use the Firian beacon as a bit of a reference. Yet, at least at this one beacon here, men certainly heard the sounds of nature all around, of course, but they spoke in whispers, also expecting to hear echoes of a great voice from the past, perhaps that of their forefather Elendil. Each beacon was unique in its nature, but of course served the same general purpose, as one like Amandine overlooked the lands north of Minas Tirith and the Great North-South Road. Eilenach was the highest point in the Druidine Forest, and was not large enough for a huge fire on its sharp summit, and Nardul, which was nearby, overlooked the quarries and masons where much of Gondor's stone for masonry had come from. There were usually over 20 or so miles between each beacon, and they were not as high up as seen in the movies, but were usually on these beacon foothills. Now, there were beacons to the south that honestly were probably lit up more, as those only called from North Gondor to South Gondor, not from one kingdom to another, and they were probably lit up with the coming of Corsair threats, such as it happened during the War of the Ring. Indeed, the only real time we know for sure that the beacons were lit in time of war was during the War of the Ring, on March 8th, it seems, before Gandalf and Pippin were riding towards the inevitable war in Gondor and beheld their light. Now, the beacons only really stretched as far north as Anorion, and so Rohan, especially from Edoras, wouldn't have been able to see them from there, and so a rider would come forth, that I'll mention in a moment. Beacons of the south had either been lit at the same time or even earlier, it seems, since the forces of the south with Prince Imrahil arrived when they did. Steward Denethor also sent forth one of his errand riders, Kirgon, to deliver the Red Arrow, another sign and request for aid to Theoden, King of Rohan, whose forces rode past many of these beacons on their way south to Gondor. Honestly, there's not much more to it than that. These beacons definitely helped bring a great kingdom and its ally together during times of strife and war, reigniting that communication and oath of friendship and mutual defense at necessary times. Each hill was vital for the next one to see, and their beacon wardens served such a ceremonial and important role in guarding and maintaining the beacons individually and together. For without them, perhaps Rohan would not have aided Gondor in time, or Minas Tirith would not have had its reinforcements from the south in that time as well. Surely in the Fourth Age and beyond, in the time of King Elisar and onwards, these beacons were maintained for practical and traditional reasons. But with the reunification of Gondor and Arnor, and the strength between Rohan and Gondor over the remaining forces that were loyal to Sauron, at least his memory, I doubt that these beacons were much used in the days of the king. And so we come to the end of our tale on the Beacons of Gondor. From these beacons we see that it is certainly okay, nay, it's even a good thing, to call for aid and help when needed, and to answer that call is a mark of mighty friendship indeed. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to hit that like button and share this with a friend. What are your thoughts on the Beacons of Gondor? Let me know in the comments below. Again, they are in one of the best scenes in all film history. And every time I think of them, I think of the inspiring music that is paired with them in the movies. Just so good. If you'd like to support the channel, please consider getting some candles from our friends Mythologie Candles, or order some What It Reunited Cutlery, Lord of the Rings swords, statues, and other replicas from Castle Con, who does international shipping, and use the code WEST at checkout, and please check out our merch. Please consider joining our memberships and Patreon for access to our Discord server and our monthly podcast. Thanks to our Valar tier patrons and YouTube members, Peter Shepard, John Hume, Reese Jenkins, Arthur Merlin, Theodore, Andrew Carlisle, and Zoomi. Thank you so much. Your help means the world to me. Please subscribe and hit that bell button to join the Men of the West and all of the free peoples today. And I'll see you all again next week with a video on the most powerful elves in Middle-earth history. My friends, thank you all so much for joining me on this adventure. Until the next one.